Forgive me if this seems crass to say out loud, but whether we openly acknowledge it or not, every nation on the planet is a brand. Japan has high tech and anime. Brazil has bright colors and beaches. And in France, they regularly and unabashedly celebrate the literal beheading of tyrants. And love of country plays a role in the brand of each and every nation on Earth. It's just that here in the United States, patriotism is such a big part of our brand that the very notion itself has been polarized.
I believe they hate our country, okay? I believe they hate our country.
Some portion of the left just genuinely hates America. I mean, they've hated it for 50 years.
In order to undermine a country that they hate. Yes, hate. America deserves to be in flames. That is their view.
The president, MAGA, and other culture warriors have seized the branding initiative in this country, claiming only they can dictate what it means to be an American and painting anyone who disagrees with them as unpatriotic.
That's my flag. How dare you hijack my flag? I serve my nation. If you look at our Constitution, it says we can do peaceful protest.
So on this episode, how did this extremist ideology corner the market on American patriotism? Why is it imperative for regular Americans to reclaim the American brand? And why is the so-called opposition so bad at branding and messaging? A respected public relations leader, government PR trainer, and service member, Dr. Joe Trahan, joins us to discuss. No, it's not our typical fare here on Lead Balloon, but yes, as we look to the next 250 years of our exceptional republic, I think it's an important conversation for us to have. I'm Dusty Weiss from PodCamp Media. This is Lead Balloon, a podcast about important stories from the worlds of PR, marketing, and branding, told by the well-meaning communications professionals who live them. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest today is someone with a demonstrated track record of both public relations success and service to his nation. Dr. Joe Trahan is the founder of Trahan and Associates, a recognized leader in media relations and crisis communications for more than 45 years. A former member of the PRSA National Board, earlier in his career, he achieved the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve and commanded the 314th Public Affairs Operations Center. As an instructor, he's taught media relations to thousands of pupils in 46 U.S. states, 5 NATO allies, Mexico, and Paraguay, in addition to teaching PIO courses at FEMA for more than 20 years. And his resume goes on and on like this, but at some point, I just need to finish introducing the guy and start the show here. So, Dr. Joe Trahan, thank you for joining us here on Lead Balloon.
Thank you, Dusty. It's an honor.
Dr. Joe, I invited you on the show here because I think that you're someone like me with a deep love of country, but also like me, I think that you're distressed in the year 2026 to see what patriotism has come to mean for some folks, but equally distressed that there seem to be other folks who appear to be giving up on the notion of national pride. So we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to dig into these pretty heavy topics here. But before we do that, I'd like to dive in a little bit more into your remarkable background. Can you tell us about your career and how you got your start and how you came up?
Well, initially I was an armor officer in the Army. Of course, I went to Tulane University for my undergraduate and degree in history, but I always loved communication. And then the Army found out after about a year and they said, man, you're impressive. You write well, you speak well. How would you like to go to the public affairs school? I said, sure. So the rest is history. They sent me to Fort Ben Harrison in 1981. We chiseled then. I tell my granddaughter that. I mean, it's long before any internet had been invented or anything. We had press releases that were actually typed out and faxed. And I just fell in love with it. I got to tell the story of the greatest military on the face of the earth, the men and women that raised their right hand and said, and I think this is an important point, I will defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I fell in love with it. And then after that, I did 9 years as a DOD civilian. I traveled the world. I did media training for all senior Pentagon people, NATO folks. I actually trained Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld. Failed miserably in that 4-hour block of instruction, but it was just a wonderful thing. And I'd always been a servant leader. And then in 2023, I decided to 2003. It's been, 23 years since the business started. I opened Trahan and Associates. I just fell in love with it. I mean, what better job to tell them? And the Army made mistakes. I dealt with 5 crises. I mean, but again, the important thing is telling their story. And just like my father taught me, it's one of the few professions other than, I think, than firefighter and police officers, you will give your organization everything, including a blank check that says, I'll give you my life if I have to. So that's where it all started. I just fell in love with it. It's a wonderful career. I mean, it's just fantastic in my mind.
It's a remarkable career path that you've had, and certainly as strategic communicators, we are shaped by the stories that we get to tell throughout the course of our careers. Yours includes Presidential Task Force Andrew following Hurricane Andrew in 1992, the National Boy Scout Jamboree in 1993, an organization near and dear to my heart, and the 50th anniversary of Operation Overlord. That's D-Day in 1994. Those are all incredible stories that you got to have a hand in shaping. Certainly a good deal of your career has been rooted in public service. And when you look around a boardroom in 2026, not everybody can say that. Is that just where your career took you, or did you feel called to serve your country?
I really think, my parents taught us, and I'm an Eagle Scout as well. So was my brother. My dad was an assistant scoutmaster. I think it started as a young age. I mean, I think my dad was a Marine. My Italian grandfather was in the Navy in World War II. I mean, my uncle was in the Marines. I mean, so the example started as a boy. I just sought out a career of service. I wanted to serve first my country, my state. And of course, Louisiana, it's a parish, it's not a county. My city, my town. I just think giving back is part of what citizenship is about. I'm still involved in my community. I want to change my corner of the world and make it better for my daughter, my granddaughter, and children yet unborn that I may never see once I go up with God with the big public relations firm in the sky, and of course he's got everything right. I don't know if he'll need my advice, but I just think it started as a boy. I think my parents ingrained all 3 of us for service back. That's what I know.
And certainly your credentials mean that your love of country is beyond question. It's unassailable. Yet when we chatted, we got introduced a couple of months back. You told me that you had been out protesting regularly, chanting, carrying signs.
No kings.
Raising some rabble.
Yeah, baby.
There are those, I won't name names, but there are those who have tried to say that protesters are people who hate our country. So how do you reconcile your decision to protest with your love of country?
Well, to me, it is my love of country that I do it. Because if you look at our Constitution, it says we can do peaceful protest. And even our founding fathers said, if this government's not working, we need to fix it. And I think that is what truly democracy is. I think it's the fact that we can protest peacefully without fear of retribution. I think freedom of the press is critical. I mean, I don't believe this BS about fake news. I'm sorry. I've worked with the media all my life. I've disagreed with stories and I've held them accountable, but they have the right to do that. But I go after them and said, here's the facts. I also believe in freedom of speech. I think those elements are so critical to our democracy. It hurts my soul to see now that government entities that I respected and have turned against our own citizens because they disagree with what they said, like Colbert coming off the air. Really? What? I mean,
that's not what the FCC was put there to do.
Yes, every president since George Washington has had to deal with the media and people sniping at him. That's the nature of the beast. I mean, even Sherman said war is hell, but yet he talked to reporters anyway. And he didn't like reporters. To me, I'm more of American. I guess I'm tooting my own horn, that the fact that I've served my nation. And I got to tell you, Dusty, when it all started, well, really the storm in the Capitol really hurt my soul in 2021. And I thought my flag had been hijacked. So for a brief moment, I thought I fly my flag every day outside. I've got a light that comes on. My dad was buried in the flag. I have his flag over there. I mean, that's my flag. How dare you hijack my flag? I serve my nation, so I'm pretty adamant. Demonstrations to me, it feels so uplifting to go. And there's a lot of veterans around me when I did the first one and the other ones. So it's a whole bunch of different people demonstrating. So it's really kind of cool.
And what I don't think gets talked about enough is the fact that when you're out there protesting, you're engaged in a very active form of patriotism and standing up for the principles upon which this nation was founded. And that is, of course, opposed by what I would term performative patriotism, or people that fly the flag, wear a T-shirt with the flag on it, say the Pledge of Allegiance, do all of that, but then do everything that they can to undermine the principles that this country is supposed to have been founded on. And I think that it's about time that there were more people who stood up and said, hey, love of country doesn't mean turning a blind eye to the faults of the nation, current and past, and celebrating it without question. I think that there's a deeper form of patriotism that is maybe a little more nuanced, is maybe a little harder for some people to understand. But unfortunately, and this is where we tie this conversation, I swore we would get here. This is where we tie the conversation to a show about marketing and strategic communication. Because
I agree.
It doesn't fit on a T-shirt. America is the best, is good messaging.
That's right.
America is great because of the ideals upon which it was founded, and while it has accomplished great things, it has also very often fallen short of those ideals, especially in this very moment. So we should acknowledge that and work together to help it live up to those ideals and become truly great. Doesn't make me want to run out and slap that on a bumper sticker on my truck, Joe.
I agree with you. You know, and I'm driven by, I'm a big history buff, and you can't see it. I've got 3,000 pounds of books. I have a serious addiction. I don't smoke, I don't drink anymore. But Stephen Decatur's quote always struck me. My country, right or wrong, it's my country. I mean, America, to me, it's made mistakes, but it's still, like George Bush the first said, that beacon on a hill. I mean, people come to our shores because they believe in the ideals. And you're right what you said about the founding fathers. They knew this wasn't a perfect one. I mean, even Franklin was asked by some lady after, what do we have here, Dr. Franklin? He said, a republic, if you can keep it. We're letting down our allies in NATO. We're turning against people that have been our friends. The French were our longest ally. They were the first one to recognize us, and hell, we wouldn't be here. I mean, and basically embracing our enemies. I mean, I just, it blows my mind to think.
Can I tell you, about a year back, I was up in upstate New York, Syracuse area, out on business with some clients. And it just so happened that there was a hockey game on between the U.S. and Canada. And of course, there's a border very close to there. And so there were a lot of Canadians in the room with us while we were watching that hockey game. I've known Canadians for all 41 of my years on this planet. They have always been the nicest, kindest, most accommodating folks.
I agree.
I got a couple of whiskeys in some Canadians that night, and they let her rip. The way that this country has turned on one of our oldest and closest allies to the north there, they have every right to be disappointed in the way that they have been treated here. But getting back to the notion of messaging then, how is it that the people that see nuance, that the people that really buy into the principles upon which this country was founded, how is it that we have so thoroughly lost the messaging battle for years now? What are we doing wrong?
I think we don't have continuity and consistency. I think we've been, to me, cowards to speak our mind. I get in trouble in public. My wife says, what do you do? It infuriates me. I mean, we hear the other side talk and we don't say anything. Well, guess what? I'm going to be 72. I don't care. We have lost the messaging initiative to move forward. What do we stand for? What are our principles? I mean, to me, civility, courtesy, kindness. I mean, the words we hear by the so-called leaders that denigrate human beings, that's wrong. That's wrong. How dare you do that? So I think we need a campaign, a strategic campaign. If I was doing the political communicating for the other party, so to speak, and I've got friends over there, I've pushed them, we need to do, tell me, what are you going to do for the American people? Tell me, because right now, I mean, my wife, you know, we're okay now financially. I mean, we built a lifetime, but man, like people like you or my daughter or my son, you know, I think we need to have messages that this is how we're going to do what we're going to do to help you with affordability. This is what we're going to do to maybe help you buy a house. This is, what I see right now in our government is people don't care about anybody but themselves. And that infuriates me. I was taught totally different. So, I do my little bit that I can do, but I think that's where the messaging is. I think we need to be aggressive and proactive and tell them what we're going to do to help fix this. That's what I think. That's what I would do.
I'm a football fan. I know you're a football fan too. Go Packers. Go Packers.
First team, the Packers, before the Saints came into the NFL.
We'll get you back. We'll get you back someday. But my old man, also a Packers fan, he likes to say that you can't win if you're playing not to lose. And right now, I would say that the opposition, quote unquote, is playing not to lose when it comes to their messaging, when it comes to their strategy. But here's the thing. I'm a former journalist, and so I try to see why people say and feel the way that they say and feel all the time. Empathy is a blessing and a curse for me. And so sometimes I have to turn a critical eye to our side, quote unquote, and admit that there are shortcomings. For instance, I saw a headline a couple of weeks back that hit me really hard, and it was in the New York Post, which is owned by the Murdochs, so take it with a grain of salt, but they were crowing on the front page of the New York Post. Fewer than 1 in 5 Dems feel proud to be American. And this, of course, was bandied about by the Tucker Carlsons and the Ann Coulters and every other hack pundit whose sole purpose in life is to try to paint liberals as the bad guys. But the fact of the matter is, it's not wrong, Joe. I know people like this. You know people like this.
I do too.
Why do they feel that way? And is it the same as hating America as it's portrayed?
I wonder why. There's things about my country I don't like that, and we look at, but we've traveled, I've traveled, you've traveled. I love other places and got friends all over the world, matter of fact, but I'm proud to be an American. I think some of the people feel that they're not being respected. I think that's the bottom line. I think my Italian grandfather had this adage about dealing with human behavior. Of course, he carried 2 pistols, but he was the nicest man I ever knew. He had blonde hair, blue eyes. He was only about 5'7". I'm 6 foot. And he would say, it's not what you say to people. It's what they feel when you walk away about you. And that has really followed me through life, because I don't think these people who are the 1 in 5 or the 4 that don't like it, I don't think they feel respected. I don't think they feel that our country, or at least our country leaders, have said, you're respected here. We're glad you're here. Whether you're black, yellow, red, homosexual, what a gay, whatever. That's what I think. I think that's, so they don't feel that. And of course, I was taught citizenship as a young age, but I was also taught inclusion with that, even though being Cajun and Italian, you were kind of an outsider anyway on both of those counts. So I that's what I believe. And I could be totally wrong, but I think it's all about respect. It's all about respecting people. And I think that those 4 people that the New York Times said don't feel good about America, they don't feel good about America that doesn't respect them. That's what I think.
And I think that's a perfectly rational reaction in a short-term sense.
Yes.
But if I'm feeling like I'm being shut out of my own country, that's where I think the rational response is to step up and double down on your patriotism, to step up and say, no, this is my country. You will not shut me out of the promise that's made in the Constitution.
I agree with that.
Make way. We're going to make this right.
I agree with that. And I think people don't want to get involved to do that. What's the old adage? You got to change it from the inside. I agree with that. And I think the Democratic Party needs to be doing that. We're proud of America, and this is what we're going to do to bring our ideals back in. If America stands for anything, it stands for bringing all those immigrants together and making a nation. But we had to have common beliefs, common values. I know the history of our country. I know the people that have suffered, but that history includes blacks, women, Indians, young, old, gay. I served with gay soldiers in the Army. That was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I knew that. But I looked at a person, if you're going to put on a uniform and raise your right hand and say, I'll defend it, I'm fine with that. So I think you're right, Dusty. I think civics education would be a good thing, probably in grammar school. I think that's when I had it, middle school. And I remember we had a civics course in high school that was taught by a black man. And you know what he said? He said, the Pledge of Allegiance and the Star-Spangled Banner is propaganda. I remember people rose up. My dad thought that was great. And he had been a Marine. My dad said, he's right, it is propaganda, but it's our propaganda, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think an education with civics may help. Of course, I'm not a political leader, but I think that's where it needs to be taught, a respect there and for inclusion.
Mm-hmm. And critical thinking, too. But I do think that there is a tendency among people who think deeply about things to want to shy away from things that feel shallow or hollow. Marketers, for their part, have fully embraced patriotism as a means of hawking everything from beer to trucks to the NFL. We got a full dose of that with the 250th anniversary celebration for our nation here. But how has, would you say, the commercialization of patriotism evolved over time, and how has that changed our relationship with it as Americans?
I think it's in every part of our world now. Everything to me is commercialized. Not that it's bad, but again, everything's marketing. I mean, like this recent celebration of 250 years. I mean, to me, the best celebration would be to read the Declaration of Independence. That's what I do on the 4th of July. I mean, how many people have read that? But I think the commercialization and marketing, it really has taken away the true meaning of what it is. That's why one of the best things we did it a few years ago. We moved here in 2020. A friend of mine is named Jim Ogden. He's the park historian at Chickamauga, Chattanooga. And he led this torchlight walk in the Chattanooga Veterans Cemetery. And we went to the graves of a few soldiers, and he talked about them. And that was on Memorial Day. And to me, the real meaning of something like that is those who have fallen. Because people say Happy Memorial. No, it's not Happy Memorial Day. We're paying homage to those who have died. So I think the commercialization has taken it away from the true meaning. I mean, every sport does it. I mean, the World Cup even had stuff for the 250, and that thing swept by. I don't know if it ends. How does it end? People jump on that wagon and buy things for commercialization, you know?
Well, and like you said, lose sight of what it's really about. You know, this branding of, it's America's 250th birthday. It's not a 4-year-old kid. We're not going to put on funny hats and have a clown dancing around. We're recognizing the 250th anniversary of an epical moment in history born of turmoil and blood and big ideas. So I really don't have a whole lot of interest in going to the Great American State Fair on the National Mall or seeing a bunch of UFC fighters beat the crap out of each other on the White House lawn. That ain't what it's about. Our nation's recognizing another anniversary this year, and this one's a little more somber. It's the 25th anniversary in September here of the 9/11 attacks.
Oh my God.
How did that event change Americans' relationship with patriotism, would you say?
Well, I'll give you where I was going to be. I was at the Defense Information School, a school I had graduated from in 1981. It trains all officers, enlisted NCOs, civilians, and allies currently friendly with the United States in public affairs. I was the Master Public Affairs Instructor, the DoD Media Relations Trainer. On that morning, I was supposed to be going to the Pentagon to meet with the Navy Public Affairs Office. I started out the door to go to my car and then hit one of the metro lines into the Pentagon, and my phone rang, my landline, and for some reason I walked back to get it, and it was a Master Chief that was saying, "Dr. Joe, meeting's been postponed today. We're going to meet the next day and talk about public affairs training for the Navy." I said, "Okay, Chief, I'll see you tomorrow." So as I put the phone down, one of the other instructors came around and said, "Hey, Dr. Joe, you got to come see. There's an accident in New York." I mean, we all thought the first plane was an accident. And then as we stood there, the second one came around and hit the other building. And you went, "That ain't an accident. I'm not intelligence." And I thought to myself, what else is going on? So later in the day, about 9-something, the Pentagon got hit. The exact spot I was supposed to be was where the plane hit. And those 13 people I was meeting with were sitting there. They died. I would have been one of them. My family, I mean, by the grace of God, I'm here. So that afternoon, they sent us home at 4:30. I can vividly remember they brought us all together for an all-hands meeting. They canceled all the classes, told everybody to go home. I remember coming out of a building at Fort Meade, which is near the BWI airport. And usually it's full of traffic because it's an airplane. And you know what was overhead, Dusty? Were 5 fighter jets, fully armed. And they were cruising at 1,000 feet. And they had rockets on them. And I had goosebumps. And then the next morning, they told us to come in. And the security was so tight that people got in their cars. They didn't complain. We sang American patriotic songs for 3 hours waiting to get through security. And I think that moment galvanized our country. There was no red states and blue states. There was only American states. And the whole world, at least the ones that are allies, and some people like even Saudi Arabia and Egypt even joined us in the crusade to strike back. So yeah, I think that was a moment that I got goosebumps right now thinking about. The American flags. Every person flew an American flag. Every person.
That's an incredible story. And certainly I think a lot of us look back at, people talk about 9/12 as being one of the finest moments for Americans. George W. Bush giving that speech through the bullhorn in the wreckage of the World Trade Centers and all of that. And we were all united. But I'll tell you this, what followed in the 2 or 3 years that came after 9/11 actually stands out to me is one of the first times that I ever felt conflicted about my love of country, because that unification, that patriotism that had been mobilized was redirected. I still feel like it was leveraged, it was manipulated into something where we didn't need to be, the invasion of Iraq. And I felt conflicted for the first time in my life, because I saw that patriotism, while good, can still be used by people to do bad things in its name.
I agree.
And then this notion that as long as you slapped to support our troops yellow ribbon on your SUV, that you could vote to send our young men and women to fight in a needless war and still be a good American. But anyone who spoke out against that needless bloodshed, folks like the Dixie Chicks, somehow they were the bad guys.
I'm with you. I think there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I was working for DOD at the time, and I'd worked for General Powell, and they made poor General Powell go before the UN and say they were there. And that man, I would have followed that man through hell. And I thought to myself, this is wrong.
I would have voted for him for president.
Oh, you and I both. It's sad. They just put him out there. Bush and those folks, Rumsfeld and all, they just pushed him out there. They knew he would be a person that could carry the water because he was so believable by both parties. I mean, you're right, Dusty. He would have been a tremendous president of the United States. I mean, and people tried to get him to run. I was part of a group that tried to get him to run. And he, I thought, man, I get to work in the White House because that man had the ability to bring people together. But I think the conservatives at 2003, they captured it and said, well, if you're not for us, you're against us and you're bad. So,
and I think it's been that way ever since. So what do we do about it, Dr. Joe? Why is it imperative for the opposition, the liberals, the Democrats, whatever you want to call them? I don't like having labels slapped on myself, but why is it imperative for regular folks who aren't these ideologues to take back this notion of patriotism, and how do they do it?
Well, I think we do it through civil discourse. I think we sit down together and say, I disagree with you. You give me your points, I'll give you mine. And
you know what, I like that. Let's pump that notion up. Let's call it radical civil discourse. Let's be in your face about how civil we are.
Well, I mean, but we need to be able to sit down. Some kind of way we're going to find commonality. I think the labels hurt us. I can't stand this red and blue state thing. I can't stand it. It just troubles me greatly. I mean, I look for people to vote for that are going to take care of people, that are good servant leaders. You mentioned empathy. If they don't have empathy, I don't want them as a leader. I really don't. And what I'm seeing now at the top job, I see nothing. I don't even see a leader. I see a person interested in one thing, themselves. And I remember because of my Army career, as an officer, I commanded 3 times. I would be the last one to go through the chow line. And sometimes there wasn't enough food. Matter of fact, that's why I love SOS, chip beef, so much. Because I never forget that breakfast out in the field. The sergeant says, "Sir, all I have is creamed beef and biscuits." I'm fine. I love that dish now to this day. But that's the way to be. And my dad taught me to lead from the front and lead by example. Never ask someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. So I think first we need a civil discourse between people. We need to sit down and agree to disagree. And then we need to say, okay, how do we fix this system? How do we move America forward in 2027, 2028, and do it with respect and dignity for each other? These calling names of people has got to stop. It's got to stop. I just think we need to be more empathetic, period. I'm just rambling on. I'm sorry.
No, but I think the notion is right, but it's like we said at the beginning here, it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker. But I also think that there are little things that regular people can do to take back that notion of patriotism from the political ideologues who would use it as a weapon. What would you say some of those things are?
I think get active in your community. I think I'm going to be a poll worker for this coming election. I think encourage people to get out and vote, become educated voters, get involved in the community, don't have an apathy toward what's going on. I mean, I volunteer. I work at the Medal of Honor Museum. I mean, maybe help somebody, reach out to somebody and help somebody. I think change your little corner of the world. I think we could do that as everyday citizens of our country and then uphold our traditions. I mean, my dad died 2 years ago. We had a Marine Corps ceremony and, full military honors and everything. And when we were growing up, we would raise the flag every morning. We'd play to the colors and we'd salute it. We'd lower in the afternoon. He taught us how to fold it. So we're standing there at his funeral. He's like 25 yards away in his casket, and this Marine Corps detachment is folding the flag wrong. And I could swear he's whispering in my ear. My brother's 2 away from me. My dad is saying, "Joe, you and Tommy refold that flag before it goes to your mother." I swear, we both heard him say that. So they end up giving the flag, and it's wrong. So my mother has it. I told my mom, I said, "We're going to take it and refold it." So my brother, and I thought to myself, that's just a simple act. I mean, how many people know how to fold a flag right? Or what is the tradition of the flag? What does it stand for? I think they all need to be at a ceremony when the flag is sacredly destroyed, because they talk about each part of the flag. I think that to me would be it. I think we as Americans need to find out our history, where we're from, who we were, where we've come from. So I'm a big believer in that too. I mean,
get some skin back in the game. I love your notion of doing public service, of giving back to the community. And you mentioned the flag retirement ceremony.
Oh, God.
We had I have been strong-armed into becoming a leader in my kids' Cub Scout troop. Well, it was bound to happen, I suppose. Our Cub Master is a good fella, and he served in the Air Force back in the day. And so at the end of the year, we had our campfire this year, and we had a flag retirement ceremony. And we've done a few of these ceremonies now at camp, and the kids sit attentively, and they listen, and they learn something. I love to see that. But we live in a very, very privileged neighborhood, Dr. Joe. A really nice suburb of Milwaukee here. And so when our Cub Master started this flag retirement ceremony, he did like they do at camp and said, "Anybody who has served your country, please come up and join me here for the flag retirement ceremony." Excellent. And then the most awkward thing, Dr. Joe, there was crickets, because not a single person, not a single parent who was at this flag retirement ceremony had served their country.
Oh my God.
And that made me sit and think that we could live in a place so privileged that nobody there had put on the uniform of their country. Now, I didn't serve my country in that way, but I worked as a journalist for a number of years, which I consider a form of public service.
I agree.
I worked as a civil servant, working for the city of Milwaukee for a couple of years. Certainly my life was not on the line there, but I was giving back to my community in that way right there.
You were serving other people.
I would love to see more people take a public service mindset. It's about time that we started putting skin in the game, even if we come from a nice neighborhood, even if we have a lot to lose. Start flying the flag again. And I'm going to have people who I know come up to me and they're going to say, "Oh, what, are you making a political statement?" I'm going to say I am.
Exactly.
I'm going to say I fly that flag because it belongs to all of us. And the people who I disagree with don't get to define what my flying the flag means.
Bravo.
That is the sort of radical civil discourse that we need to start.
Bravo. Absolute bravo. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to, serve my nation. I will continue to serve my nation probably to the last breath I have in my body. And just like Stephen Decatur said, my country, right or wrong, it's my country. And again, even with all our mistakes, it's still a great nation. And thank you for the opportunity, Dusty, to join you. It's been a privilege.
Well, and you mentioned Thomas Jefferson, and it's a republic if you can keep it. If we want to keep our republic, if we want to keep our principles, if we want to keep a reasonable definition of patriotism, we need to be willing to use the means at our disposal to tell the folks who would warp those tenets to their own ends to stick it. You don't represent a majority.
That's right.
You don't get to define what this country is. Your willingness to do just that is why I was looking forward to having this conversation with you, and I appreciate you making time for it. Dr. Joe Trahan, founder of Trahan and Associates, former PRSA national board member, and retired Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army Reserve. Thank you so much for joining us on Lead Balloon.
Honor.
You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey. And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
Special thanks as well to Cindy Woolley from C2 Communications in Florida for putting us in touch with Dr. Joe. Cindy, you are absolutely right. I do like that guy a lot. And of course, thank you for tuning in. Here on Lead Balloon, we tell the interesting tales of prolific communicators like Dr. Joe, and we hope to see you back here in this feed again sometime soon. Follow us in your favorite podcast app and send a link to someone else who would dig it, or hire us to make a podcast for your company. Because Lead Balloon is produced by PodCamp Media, where we help global brands use podcasting to tell worthwhile stories and connect with their audiences. Our podcast studios are located in the heart of beautiful downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but we work with brands all over North America to help them launch and build podcasts that work. Check out our website, podcampmedia.com. Music for this episode by Famous Cats. And until the next time, folks, thanks for listening. I'm Dusty Weiss.